Are we doing an intro or anything like that?
Uh,
This is the Disgruntled Crab and Rusty Culture most professional review show!
All right, so today we're going to be diving into what to me is an oldie, a film that was released. Let's see if I can do my math right. Long before I was born. That way I'll avoid having to do the math. And not only is it me here today along with Rusty, we have an additional guest here. We're using the number 3 because I've been told that architecturally the triangle is the strongest shape. And in order to boost our views and our content, we figured we'd attempt to try this triangle. So we're joined today by Venture Capital. Why don't you say hi to the lovely people out there?
Hello, everybody. Appreciate being on the podcast.
And then, of course, Rusty is here as well.
hey, how's it going?
So the film we're talking about today, was a bit of a weird one for me. We are going to be talking about Time Bandits. And as I said, this movie was released in 1981. I actually don't know if I said that, but if I didn't, here it is. This movie was released in 1981 and directed by Terry Gilliam. And it features a lot of the Monty Python guys, as well as Sean Connery, which I was very surprised to see him because Rusty had told me that the Monty Python guys were in this, but not Sean Connery. So that was kind of cool. So why don't we just dive in with spoiler free? Are we doing spoiler free, or is this old enough where we're just doing whatever?
There's got to be spoilers on this one.
I said,
Yeah,
well,
but
we,
sometimes
I don't think you
could.
could. I don't think you could properly talk about this movie without spoiling some stuff.
I think we can give our opinions on
Yeah.
whether people should see it spoiler free, especially because we want people to see that. Considering Apple is bringing out a series on this, and it doesn't sound like it's.
Oh, really?
Yes, it doesn't sound like it's starting off good. So hopefully we can steer people back to the original.
Good deal.
So we'll open with just our initial thoughts on this initial spoiler free thoughts. So Venture Capital, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll hit it up. The spoiler free one's going to be hard. I think for the time that it was made, a pretty awesome movie. I mean, I look back. I was born in late 70s, so this didn't hit my wheelhouse in terms of when it came out. I was first in line. But when Return of the Jedi came out, I went and saw that in the theaters. So I escaped it. I never saw this movie. And in checking it out, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Because back then, think about like fantasy films. There really wasn't all that much. So to have something like this out there, it would have been a movie that I would have totally loved when I was younger. And watching it now, there's still some stuff that holds up to it. So there's some pretty cool take on good versus evil being tied into, I think, more of the technological side of things. And there's some mind trippy stuff that takes place throughout the course of it. That's pretty wild and crazy, and very, very, very far out there. But they also do a good job injecting some humor throughout the course of it. So I guess that would be kind of my overall spoiler-free take on it.
Yeah, why don't I go next? Because I also had not seen this before. And, I agree. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I enjoyed it. It's weird. It's definitely a weird movie. I don't know if I was expecting it to be that way going in, but I liked it. You settle into it. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add beyond what you said already. It's a fun movie. It was a good watch. It has great commentary on some of the things that you mentioned, and yeah, overall, I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it.
I'll round us out. I saw this many times as a young lad, and it still holds up. I hadn't seen it for probably a couple decades, but going back to it, it is still such a charming movie. It's got a lot of great humor. It was written by Terry Gilliam and Michael Palin from Monty Python, and it's got a lot of their humor involved, and with a lot of the weirdness that is Terry Gilliam movie. And it's a great watch, and it doesn't feel like the runtime. It never a point in it do I feel like let's move on to the next thing. There's a lot of great filmmaking, a lot of varied sets, and it looks well above the budget that it has. So I highly recommend this movie. I was shocked to see the actual budget of the movie, because there are so many different sets and costumes and locations they had to do for this. I don't know how they did it.
I think it lends itself to be a movie that could be remade, or could be a series that could be super awesome, just because of that nature. I mean, it's a bunch of thieves that are jumping all throughout time, trying to get treasure and whatnot, and then there's a tag along for the ride. So hey, here's your Harry Potter type of. It's not that he's an orphan, but this Harry Potter type of character, the orphan, the Luke Skywalker, the kid that's going on a journey, and he's taken with this crew, and they're going all throughout time.
I could see it
committing
being
these,
remade into something that's has a lot of timeless classics. I just don't see that happening now, the way that Hollywood is producing. So that's why I have little faith in the TV series that's being produced.
Oh yeah, I think the potential is there, but do I think that it will be executed well? No, because the way that it'll be executed is, I have a feeling it'll maybe be, I don't want to say political correctness to death, but to a certain extent, you don't know how they're going to reimagine it so that everyone is happy. And in some cases, sometimes to make something really cool, not everyone's going to be happy with it. And I think that's what's cool about this film, is it was weird. There was just some stuff that you could easily see this was made for a group of people. I mean, like I said before, if I would have found this when I was in my youth, I would have probably watched it a boatload of times as well, just from the sole standpoint of, I like weird, and this was something that was up my alley in that regard.
You guys are so mean to Hollywood executives.
Well, they have it coming, so they've destroyed almost everything from my childhood. There's very few things that are left that they haven't raped and pillaged.
There's Battleship, man. Battleship the game. You saw that movie. That was hot. So
yeah, but I would agree with everything you guys are saying. I think this movie is only limited by the time it was made in, and that's not their fault. And even for the time it was made in, a lot of it is still very impressive. So should we dive into?
I think we can. I would say that all of us recommend this. So if you haven't watched it, go out and watch it. It's available on HBO Max right now. You can. I don't know if they're Blu-ray copies. I know you can get DVD copies available on Amazon. So
nobody has those anymore.
So that's the spoiler-free part. Now we get to dig into it, and we can crack some jokes at the movie's expense, right?
Yeah. So This is your warning, people. If you are going to watch the movie, you need to stop this video. If you're in the middle of something, I'm giving you time right now. If you're washing the dishes, pull your hands out of that sink, dry them off, hit pause. Go watch the movie. It's coming in 3, 2, 1. At the end of this movie, a giant elephant appears and kills everyone.
It was crazy that they did it, because it was the same elephant from The Lord of the Rings. And I had no idea that they would actually tie in Legolas into this movie at the very end. Blew me away.
And that was amazing, considering they were able to use time travel to make films like that.
And then when Iron Man showed up, it was even weirder.
The part that was weird about Iron Man was that he had a lightsaber.
Right,
and
right.
It just it
they
kind of
foresaw
blew me away.
the Disney merger.
Yeah, this film predates all of the mergers whatsoever. It literally called it.
Yep.
TG shot called the whole entire Hollywood universe. And from the ashes, a blue Navi, whatever they're called, came up and gave a wink at the camera with a Terminator eye, and that was the end of it. So for those of you that ventured into spoiler territory, sorry that we jumped right to the ending, but man, the end is incredible.
Anyway. All right, Rusty, you want to take us through it?
Sure, I'll take us through it. It starts off with just a British boy living his life in basically a suburban family that's just caring about keeping up with the Joneses, and he goes to bed, and a knight busts out of his closet and ends up taking off into a forest, and he covers himself up, and he's back in his room. So he prepares for the next night because he wants to make sure that he can keep track of this. So it's a nice setup that he picks up a Polaroid, and we use that throughout the movie. So it's nice that they're setting things up. Why would he have the Polaroid with him? But then the second night, from the closet come a group of time bandits. Forget how many
Little
we have
people.
exactly. Yes, they're little people, which I don't know if that would be made in the new version. I don't know if they would do that because it's not.
They wouldn't. That's yeah.
It's not done as to make fun of the little people. It's helps build this,
Unique.
carry the rest of the story because this little kid can be looked up to by these because he's got a grasp of history because they're going through history and stealing from all these basically historical figures during some of the high points of their adventures.
True. Can I mention one thing? So I'll do this as venture capital. I'll give a critical eye on some of these things. Now, granted, like the movie, love the movie. There's an inside joke with my family that I'll get into a movie and go, none of this is logical. And they'll say, well, it's Middle Earth. And what they mean by that is just strap yourself in. It's a movie. Just relax. But I love it when you go into the future movies that are done back in the 80s and everyone's talking about like you put a pill in a microwave and you press a button and it's a full meal. And then they go, pass me the newspaper. And then they open up the newspaper and start shuffling through the pages. And it's that they have like one minor bit. Everything is normal as a 1980s house, but it's just their language behind the scenes is all this crazy technology is about. But the thing that I loved in the early part, I do comic books on the side, and one thing I've always wanted to introduce in a comic book is like a future world where reality TV is so distorted, and the show is I Do or You Die. And it would be a show where, like, 10 men go after the one girl, and if she doesn't pick you, you're dead. Like, literally the last survivor is the one that she's going to marry. And they had the coolest name of a TV show. This is from 81, you said, right?
Yes.
Yep.
It's like Your Money or Your Life. And that was the game show they were watching. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. That was a cool title. And it was people competing, or it was their life to a certain extent. And I thought that was pretty neat.
That's got to be a capitalism dig, right?
Totally. But I mean, they shot called reality TV.
Right.
That's what I thought was pretty cool about it. This is before MTV, Real World, everything.
And there's a lot of really weird game shows that were coming out at the time. They were throwing a lot of stuff at the wall. So it was one of those based on kind of the newlywed game stuff, crazy like that, where you just get people together and they do silly stuff for money.
Did they say when? I think if they did, I didn't catch it. Did they say, does this movie take place in 81?
It seems like it's not out of time. It seems
Yeah.
like there's a little fantastical, some of the computerized stuff that's going on, all the appliances that the mom wants to buy and stuff like that. That seemed a little more outside the norm, but it seemed like it was taking place in the time.
Oh, see, and maybe that's where I was mistaken on it. First, I thought it was Future World. And then I'm going, how is this even possible? But you're right. If they would have just played it straightforward with, we're in the 80s, and I think that maybe that would have helped my mindset on it.
Well, I think it's got to be a consumerism commentary thing where this family, all they want is to get the newest, best things. There's all these new products out that they're going for that they're obsessing over so much so that they can't even pay attention to their own kid.
And that's kind of the late 70s, early 80s mindset, I believe. I think it's more late 80s, so it may have been ahead of the curve on it. But being that it's from England, maybe it was a slightly different time frame in that. I'm looking at it from over here in the good old US of A.
All right, what's next?
So, after the time bandits show up, Kevin shines a light on them, and they think that he is the supreme being, because it turns out they stole a map with holes to all the spots in reality. So that's how they're completing their heists through time, as they're jumping through these holes. So they happen to drag Kevin along on their adventures, and they end up in the Battle of Castiglione, and they work on robbing from Napoleon.
Which is, I looked at it and I said, did Bill and Ted's get that from this movie at a certain point? Because every comedy or every movie that has time travel, apparently we got to go pick on Napoleon, man. Because I loved it in Bill and Ted's, and I was like, oh, here we go again. Let's do this.
Now, do we have nice appearance of Bilbo Baggins as Napoleon?
Yeah.
Good old Ian Holm showing up. And I really enjoy the number that the Time Bandits do when they're part of the traveling circus that's entertaining Napoleon as this battle is going on.
What was the number that they were doing? I'm trying to remember.
Me and My Shadow.
Oh, that's right.
They end up doing it really horribly and end up fighting, and Napoleon is just in love with it. And he ends up turning all of the time bandits into generals in his army.
Yeah, because he's bigger than them.
Yes.
I mean, that was the obviously the running joke on it, which was pretty good. Here comes my question though. So they go and they rob him, and throughout it you see them, trying to take these treasures and whatnot. This was the one part that I was laughing, and I said, "That's Middle Earth. These guys are they rob and then they ball out." What are they going to do with the treasures? There's no home base in this whole thing.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, they rob it. What if they stole like Fort Knox? Then they come around, like the next spot they go, are they going to be hauling around like 10 tons of gold bars?
I think that's the funny part is every heist they do, they lose the money the moment they get to the next area.
Yeah, correct. It's like, come on, think this plan through, guys. Come on.
They don't. We also forgot to mention that they were in charge of creating trees because they worked for the Supreme Being, which was a great joke. I liked when Kevin's like, "What, you mean God?" He's like, "Well, we don't know him that well." One of the trees they made was it caused too many problems, so they got demoted. So they decided to steal the map, and they're stealing across time. And after they steal,
and then losing it with each individual,
yes.
each individual stop.
So after they steal from Napoleon, they barely escape his men catching them as they're running out with the gold, and they end up in Robin Hood's time. And Robin Hood is happy to see that they've here to donate all these treasures to give to the poor.
Yeah, but you can't undersell that. The best part, that's the best part, because they land in a traveler's carriage, and then they're just kind of ditched there with their treasure. And then the travelers scream that they were robbed. So then they get excited to say, "Hey, these are guys that pillaged just like us." They get caught, and you think that they're gonna go meet the big bad, like it's gonna be some beast of a guy behind the scenes, like Mad Max coming out here, and it's John Cleese. You're just like as Robin Hood, and I mean, it was, oh hello,
the
totally
most
good.
foppish Robin Hood. Everybody else in the entire band are these disgusting cutthroats with swords, and they've been living out in the wild, and they're horrible people. And Robin Hood is in the standard play acting that is Robin Hood of that time. So he's so out of place that just sells the joke.
It's awesome. That's one of the highlights of the movies for me.
Well, John Cleese is the highlight of anything he's in.
Total. Exactly. And just the misplacement of him being so clean and proper. Oh, jolly good, jolly good. And then it
has probably the joke that I laughed the hardest at.
And you're a robber too, are you? How long have you been a robber? 4'1". Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1". Yes. Well, that is a long time, isn't it?
So for me, the part with him that cracks me up is then he eventually tells the Time Bandits, "Well, thank you so much for bringing all this treasure, because now we're going to redistribute it to the poor." And it's like, what? You're going to do what? But as he hands out the treasure, he grabs a poor person and goes, "Well done, congrats." And then as soon as the poor person gets something, one of his other helpers just slugs him as hard as they can and knocks him out. And then eventually, after like the third one, Robin Hood goes, "Is that really necessary?" And they go, "Oh, I'm afraid so it is." Like that, to me, that was the best. Like that was such a good nod, Monty Python style. It was awesome.
Right after that, there's this little old lady. The look on the guy's face as he's preparing just to sock this little old lady right in the face.
Well, there we are. Congratulations. Well done. There we are. Well done. Congratulations. Is that absolutely necessary? Yes. What did he say?
He says, yeah, he's afraid it is.
Ah, fine. There we are, madam. Congratulations. Well done. Jolly good.
Yeah, that part to me was probably one of the absolute highlights, is whenever they're handing out the treasure and the Time Bandits are like, well, I guess we're out of here. And it's just that power punch right in the head, right in the face of everybody. Yeah, I'm afraid so. It's necessary. So good stuff.
So continuing on after the Robin Hood section, a fight breaks out between our Time Bandit friends over who should be in charge of the map. And we get the second appearance of the Supreme Being, who is trying to get his map back, so they want to escape, and Kevin ends up going into the wrong door and gets separated. And then we end up in Greece, where a Spartan soldier is facing off against a Minotaur, and the Minotaur's...
Just because there's a Minotaur there hanging out.
Yeah, it's just a minute, you know.
In the middle of a desert, just hanging out, there's a Minotaur.
That's, as you do.
You can get lost in deserts. They're kind of like a labyrinth.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say the complete opposite of where a Minotaur would be. But yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we'll go.
No walls, nothing.
Yeah,
You can
nothing.
see
Just
as
wide
far
open
as however.
spaces. He's like, of all the assignments I get after graduating Minotaur school, I get the freaking desert.
See, this one didn't graduate. That's why he's in the desert.
Yeah.
But after this Spartan soldier is facing off against the Minotaur, he's almost lost. And then Kevin drops in and surprises the Minotaur, which allows the Spartan soldier to kill him. And as he gets up, he removes his helmet, and it's King Agamemnon, played by Sean Connery.
I've got him in my sights. That was my worst Sean Connery impersonation.
Which he actually toned down the Scottish accent in this, so it wasn't as...
He did.
He didn't
And
try
this
doing...
is during the James Bond era.
I thought this was well after the James Bond era.
Or maybe not. I'm saying like he was James Bond previous.
before
So this is like
yeah.
this is heavy Sean Connery. It's not like I'm an unknown. Like he's jumping in on this one as a well-established actor.
Yes, I did cheat a little bit and watched a little bit of behind the scenes of Terry Gilliam, and as they were writing it, he said that in the script it said the Spartan soldier takes off his helmet and underneath is Sean Connery or a slightly cheaper but just as recognizable actor.
Hey, it worked. He got Sean Connery.
That's right.
Swing big or else.
This was a short little side section where Kevin actually finds an area where he's accepted. It felt like at his own home, he was just kind of a third wheel in his family, and King Agamemnon is actually training him, teaching him stuff about how to be a man in the world. He's separated from the Time Bandits. He's enjoying this little life, and there's a nice dinner, or basically a celebration, where King Agamemnon is pulling Kevin into his family and saying that he's going to be treated as his son and his heir to the kingdom.
Which I just want to say, not a great thing for Kevin, because I just looked up Agamemnon on Wikipedia quick, and one of the lines says, Agamemnon's family history has been tarnished by murder, incest, and treachery. So,
there you go.
Poor Kevin.
Hey, son, let me introduce you to a couple of my friends, and hey, if you survive the night, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have
What's
to
nuts
worry
is that
about
Robin Hood and oh wait, but what's nuts is Robin Hood actually invites Kevin to stay with him too, and he's like, "Sure, I'll hang with you," but the Time Bandits grab him and say, "No, come on, you're coming with us." So they take him away from Robin Hood too, because I just rewatched some of that right before we started talking, and I'm like, "Oh wow, he got kind of pulled from being in Robin Hood's adventure as well, because him being a history nut, all he wants to do is be a part of history, because his escapism is through history versus living in the modern era where his family, all they care about is consumerism. But the one thing I want to add is, okay, how do you pronounce it? I always mispronounce his name.
Agamemnon.
I'll just say Sean Connery. So Sean Connery's like, yo, Kevin, I want him to be my son. So I'm going to throw this big party in his honor. But if you watch this looks like a hazing ritual from like an 80s frat video. Kevin wakes up and all of a sudden there's a bunch of creepy dudes with masks on with like a bag to put over his head. And then he gets put on a mule and is walked through the town going like, what's going on, guys? What's going on? And then the next thing you know, he ends up in some party. But I thought that was hilarious. It's like Sean Connery's like, at first you think like something bad's going to happen to this kid. And then he's the roast of the party. He's like, hey, I'm going to adopt you, bro. And I just thought that was hilarious that he sent like creepy dudes with gold masks to go kidnap the guy and put a bag on his head.
Well, I wonder if back then that was like a very honorable thing to do. Like, did you get the bag on your head in Agamemnon's kingdom? Be like, hell yeah, I got the bag tonight.
No, he just beat me with sticks. It's like, sorry, man. Maybe next time you'll get the bag on your head.
Yep.
Was it one gold face guy or two gold face guys? But you look at some of that.
I only got bronze guys. I'm sorry, I didn't get any of the gold guys.
How could you tell in the dark?
Yeah, right.
I know.
That's too funny. But no, I mean, you look at some of that stuff. My one thing, if you looked up the history, this was good. The entire time Connery is there, Connery's the best dude, right? Like, he's the king. He slays a minotaur that's in the desert for who knows what flippin' reason. And then he comes back. The people love him. He's got this Kevin dude. And then his wife is giving him, like, the evil eye. Like, she gives him the stink eye. Every single time they look over, he's like, "Hey, honey, how's it going? I'm James Bond," you know? And all of a sudden it's like, the evilest look you could possibly imagine in every setting. And I'm going, was there some history thing where the wife, like, what's the deal with his wife? Was that connected to something?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out right now.
I have no idea. I don't think we're gonna go into Time Bandits to look at a accurate portrayal of history, considering Napoleon technically wasn't really that short for his time.
He wasn't short, yeah. I'm glad you said it, because I'm not standing up for Napoleon, but I've heard some history stuff on Napoleon. He wasn't that short of a guy. He's like 5'10" or something like that.
He just wasn't short
5'8"
in
or 9
general.
or something like that.
Yeah, he was a horrible person, but he wasn't short.
Yeah. Good stuff. So anyhow, sorry, I took us off track on the fact that
perfect.
Sean Connery's putting his kid through a hazing ritual. Well, the other part that's hilarious is he sits there and he goes like, "So, I'll teach you how to fight with a sword, but what about this?" And then he does like a great magic trick. And then the kid's like, "Cool." And then it cuts. And I was like, all right, there we go.
Sean Connery
check
has
out this trick.
Sean Connery has a really messed up image of what kids enjoy. You know what kids like? Swords, magic tricks, and bags over the head.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Let me put you in this barrel. We'll push you down the hill, whatever. Like, sure thing, Dad.
Be my son. It'll be great. We can do this every day.
Yeah. Then like the song, like, "Can't You Tell Me About My Best Friend," like starts playing in the background, and it just shows him putting Kevin in all these dangerous situations. Like, that's the sequel we need right there.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think we're getting that, but maybe.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe they'll resurrect Sean Connery and have him in the Apple TV series.
Like a Weekend at Bernie's deal,
Yes.
where Sean Connery. Oh, too good, too good.
The other crazy part about this, to keep us moving, is that Kevin's like really into it.
Totally. Like, this is his fantasy. Like, legitimately his fantasy is understanding and knowing and loving history. And then when we get to the ending, we can do the whole, there's a little bit of that Wizard of Oz mystique of, if you look around his room, a lot of elements of, what he goes through is there. But so yeah, I think he's totally into it, because it would be cool if we were back in time in that era and you were able to time travel and see some of these other worlds, knowing what you know. So I think I agree with that. I think that was pretty cool.
It'd be cool for about a day, and then I'd really miss technology.
For me, it'd be as soon as I had to use the bathroom.
Exactly. But the one thing that I think I had it in my notes was that Lord Evil appears around this time too. Because he's the one that implants.
He was actually appeared in the Robin Hood time frame.
Correct, right after that. And Lord Evil, ironically, looks a lot like Lord Business from Lego, the Lego movie, which I thought was pretty funny. I don't know if they did that as a nod to Time Bandits, but I thought he looked a lot like Lord Business. And very much like Lord of the Rings with Tolkien, was the whole bit was that, Sauron and evil was associated with industry, based on like World War II and whatnot, and that the good guys were based on kind of nature and that creative spirit. And it's almost like that's the same thing. You've got this guy who is a mix of, like I said, Lord Business meets Dune meets, all kinds of craziness in the world of technology, and all his minions are just these plebes. And the way that I thought about it is, he was evil. That was, he is this creation of evil, and he keeps trying to create life, and all he can do is create. It's not pure. It's not a pure life. It's dumb. So anyhow, we get to see him, and Lord Evil is the one that kind of implants the thought that, hey, you Time Bandits should be looking for the most valuable thing in the world, which is hidden in the map. So he's trying to convince them to go find him so that he could steal the map.
The most fabulous object in the world.
That's it.
It's
yes.
located in the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness.
There's no hint and foreshadowing by us calling it that at all.
Hey, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go get that.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So I went through the sea of twirly whirly gumdrops. It's like, no, it's just the most evil, heinous place ever. It's like one step below New Jersey. And boom, there it is. It's like...
Okay, so we had the big celebration, and it turns out that the Time Bandits are there. They're inside this kind of circus, and they go around and they're stealing all this stuff from people around. And they're going to do amazing magic tricks. So they grab Kevin, who doesn't want to go, but they pull him out. And King Agamemnon's like, yeah, go, be part of the show.
Throw some swords at him. Can we throw some stones at the boy?
So they go up and they disappear into another time hole. And they make their way onto a cruise ship where they're enjoying their ill-gotten gains from Greece. And Kevin is very dejected now because he was actually really happy where he was.
But they did buy him a suit.
They did. Everybody got a nice suit. I'm curious the exchange rates that they were able to do. We don't worry about that technical stuff. They're just able to get tickets.
Middle Earth, baby.
After they're enjoying this nice little cruise ship, there's a good tie-on at the end, right before it happens, because Randall is, bring us more champagne with lots of ice. And it turns out that they're on the RMS Titanic right before it crashes.
Which was brilliant, and they had a pretty funny callback with I think it's Shelley Duvall. She's one of the characters at the Robin Hood, the Bandits. Rob.
Shelley
Not
Duvall.
the Time Bandits, but the Robin Hoods. Shelley Duvall, that's it.
Yeah.
And she's on the Titanic as well with a funny joke where it's like, you don't mind about this thing on my nose? And she's like, yeah, as long as you don't mind that I have an enormous, and then all of a sudden the Time Bandits appear. Another brilliant joke thrown in the middle of it, which is pretty good. But the Titanic bit was pretty cool. Then the ice joke was just the icing on the cake, if you will.
But
there it is. I had to get one in there.
Weird that they consider a Spielberg movie a moment in history.
Yeah. That's James Cameron.
It is James Cameron. Oh my God.
That's staying
the blue Navi with the
leave
Terminator eye is coming after you. So
yeah. Sorry, James Cameron. I know you're listening to this. I'm sorry, James Cameron, that I credited your work to Spielberg, who's a better director.
Yeah, right. Well, Titanic hits, and they do a pretty cool shot. Like, I mean, you think about it, that big scene where the actual ship's going down, that was a pretty cool shot. But what I found hilarious is you had, how many Time Bandits are there?
7 if you include Kevin.
Okay, so 7, right? So you've got 7 people able to chill on a door in the middle of the ocean versus Jack and Rose, where that Rose sat on the door and let Jack drown. But not only were the Time Bandits just chilling, they literally said, "Hey, let's let go of this door. I'm okay just treading water in the middle of the frosty Atlantic Ocean here."
Yes, and they just have to believe. That's how they get to the time of legends. Meanwhile, it's just a ploy by Lord Evil to bring them in, and he's opening a portal and bringing them into the time of legends, where we really step up the Terry Gilliam-ness of the movie.
Totally, but the effects that he does they go toe to toe. It was a practical effect, and it goes toe to toe with half the stuff that's out there today, where they do like a reverse negative of the film, and then they run reverse of these guys jumping into the water. So it looks like an explosion of people, and all of a sudden, or it looks like dust, and all of a sudden it comes together as a person flying upward, which is pretty cool, pretty brilliant.
Yes, and when they all land in the time of evil, all of their suits have now been inverted as well. So where they had black tuxes, they all have white tuxes when they land in the time of legend.
Brilliant! I didn't even notice that. That's pretty cool. Now, if you notice, if you're really paying attention, when they're all swimming and they get sucked in the portal, they have one of them which is just a dummy that's floating, so you see its head literally on. Well, the one is so bad that's in the water. I mean, it was really, really bad. It looked like if you've got like the cool props department, and then one of them, they're like, crap, we need one more. And they went, go to Macy's and just get one of the guys off the shelf, and we'll chuck a suit on it and throw it in the bathtub that we're throwing. I mean, it was pretty bad, but the effects with them coming in and out were good.
I think this is something that is lost with films made now, is that back then, every shot cost you money, not just in the staff, but you're burning up film. So you can't just reset and do it again because you have a limited amount of film that's in the budget. It's like you don't just have data on a card that you can just overwrite and use again if the shot doesn't come out right.
Correct. And they can't see that footage either until it gets developed.
Yeah.
So if they're doing that one shot and they take it and they're like, I think we got it, good. And then they come back to it and they're like, oh, that mannequin flipped over the wrong way. You're stuck with it unless you reset up the whole shot. So you're right about that.
So I think that's something that's kind of missing from in filmmaking now is making do with what you had and trying to do the best you can out of stuff like that. And dummy shots in a lot of movies almost never look good. So I can forgive 1 out of 7 dummies looking bad.
But you're right. Once they get into the what is it, the time of legends, that's when the drug kicks in. So when they were writing this movie and they said, hey, I've got this really cool concept, let's start writing. And he's like, well, hold on, let me take this hit of whatever it is I'm going to take a hit of. And then they start telling this tale and it gets a little crazy and whatnot. And they're like, nah, it'll be great. And then right around now is when it kicks in and he's like, whoa, the colors are talking to me and orange is speaking the loudest. And then that's what we get into right now with what you're about to talk about.
It kind of stops being a time travel movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they end up getting pulled out of the water by an ogre and his wife who are on a ship. And they're going to cook up the time.
And the
bandits.
wife is Mona from Who's the Boss as
Yes.
well, which I thought was funny as well. A little callback to some 80s TV.
Don't worry. You don't need to know about that show. It's okay. It's a weird little stop because they're going to be cooking the time bandits for supper. But the time bandits use a little ingenuity to kick both of them off of the ship.
Yeah, who would have known or who would have thought that an ogre with chronic back pain would have fallen victim to the time bandits and Kevin, just becoming actually pretty cool chiropractors to him. But what was really awesome about it is even though he gets swindled out of his home, his life, and he's thrown in the middle of the ocean, the ogre's pretty chill. He's like, hey, thanks, man. You kind of fixed my back. I can cough again. I can move again. I can swim again. No big deal. Now his wife might be a little mad in the morning, but still, it was pretty cool how they played that off.
And then we get to a really weird section where apparently the ship is not a sailboat, it's a hat on a giant.
Obviously.
Moana tie-in, anyone? It's like a giant Maui that's walking with a ship for a hat. But the part that's crazy is it sails. So as soon as the ogre coughs, the ship is sailing, and they're actually sailing it like a ship until, for the story purpose, I don't think I want it to be a ship anymore. It just turns into a hat all of a sudden. You're like, what?
And then they drug the giant so that he sits down and sleeps. He takes his hat off before he sleeps, and they're allowed to escape. And they're walking through the desert and getting into arguments that they're all going to die out there until they run into an invisible barrier, which led to another one of my favorite lines, and this is one I remember. It says, well, that's what an invisible barrier looks like.
Yeah, that's good stuff. It would have been cool if there was a Minotaur in that desert, to be honest with you. That would have been a cool callback, is that in all of TG's movies, labyrinths
just have Minotaurs.
Yeah, deserts have Minotaurs.
Well, there is a labyrinth coming up.
I know, but there's no Minotaur in the labyrinth. He's got him in the desert.
That's even more embarrassing for that Minotaur because labyrinths do exist. And he's not there.
Yes, they have an argument. They all want to go back, and Randall picks up a skull and whips it at the other time bandits and misses and breaks the invisible barrier. So apparently this invisible barrier is not very strong. It's broken with a skull.
Glass is like that. It's invisible and not very strong.
Yeah, but it didn't seem like it was glass. It seemed like it was, considering the big giant pieces that fell out of this invisible barrier. And it revealed the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness, which I have to say...
Which was inviting.
Yes. And it was a pretty impressive miniature that they had for that fortress. I don't know how big that thing was.
Well, I mean, that's the cool part. Like when we talk about like movies of the 80s, the practical effects in that miniature scale are just so killer. Like that movie has some cool elements of it. You've got elements of it with Labyrinth, Dark Crystal. I mean, a lot of that's... I was a big Jim Henson fan, so anything with puppets, Muppets, you name it. but that small scale that they do so well in those movies, there wasn't a lot of it back then. So when you got to see something like that, you really got sucked into that world. And yeah, they did a really good job there.
I think seeing this fortress and knowing Lord Evil up to this point, he needs to take some branding classes. Because if he's really hoping to trick people onto his side, calling yourself Lord Evil isn't a great way to do it. And you probably want to make your fortress a little nicer looking so people don't automatically assume that you're the bad guy.
Hey, most of the time Bandits were fine with it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's nuts.
To be fair.
Literally, if you would have had a sign that said Lord Evil's, darkness lair, now 99% less evil, maybe that would have worked. But no, it literally was as ominous as you could imagine.
Some people can't be helped.
Yeah.
So we see them enter. Well, we don't really see them enter the fortress. They're in the fortress. And there's a game show going on. It's Your Money or Your Life. And they just have to walk through this giant labyrinth to get there so they can get the most fabulous object in the world. And all they need to do is turn over the map, which they do.
And the object was a Swiffer. It was weird.
Yes, and then they get locked in the cage above a bottomless pit. Has a pretty tremendous escape.
Yeah. There's a lot of Middle Earth happening at this point, man. Whatever they're doing, they're passing it around in full force in the creative room, and they're just going with it, and I love every bit of it. They're cutting the rope. So paint the picture. It's this massive rope. We're talking the rope that you would tie the Titanic to the dock with, right? It's that thick. And he goes, "Hey, give me that little knife there." And he brings it up, and he's just cutting threads of it and dropping it down, and they're making a really long, big rope with it. But rather than saying, here's one thread and it goes up and I can just keep cutting it, he just takes that thing down like an apple core so that there's only one strand holding everyone up, mind you, in this massively heavy cage. So that paints the picture for you to continue, my friend.
Yes, and they end up swinging to two other cages through this elaborate trapeze act where Wally is the star of the show. He's the guy that's not only cut all of the rope, but he's also the one that's swinging the other guy to make sure that he can reach where they need to and get across. They set up this nice little zip line for everybody to escape, and everybody's almost crossed. It's just Wally left that he needs to jump and grab the line, which he does. But that one little strand gives way, and we think Wally is dead. But fortunately, he's still hanging on, and they're able to pull him up.
Okay, and this is where I got to jump in. So this part, I was laughing on the ground because first off, they take one of the Time Bandits, who is the one of the little people that's out there. So he swings and he drops to the labyrinth wall. So he's free, right? And he goes, "I'm just going to tie this rope to my ankle, and I'm going to hold on to the edge." And that's one of their anchor points. And the rest of them, they tie it to this super heavy cage, and then they zip line down it. So when the cage breaks and it falls down, no effect. This dude has got Hulk-like strength that he's holding onto the edge. He does. That's his power. I was like, man, this person's got some strength, man. And I was wondering, I'm like, so does he just climb up and that rope is still hooked on? But they did do a good job. They cut the rope, so you see that. Who was the guy that fell?
Wally fell.
You see Wally, he's not just hanging and the rope is still taut at the end. It's actually cut. So in some magic act,
it broke
when
on its way down.
Yeah, it broke on its way down. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, wait a minute. So he's not tying that on anywhere? But again, it's Middle Earth. But yeah, it's pretty good. They make their great escape. And Wally is the Captain America to the main guy's Iron Man, I would say, right? Wally's kind of the guy who's the heart of that group.
Yes, he's kind of the bruiser.
Yeah,
we need somebody strong. You get Wally in there. I forgot. I'm sorry. We'll have to take it back because the map is gone. But
how dare you spread misinformation to the viewer like that?
Yeah.
Kevin had taken a picture of the Time Bandits after their first heist, and they had the maps scrawled out in front of them. So it's in the Polaroid, so they're able to figure out a way to possibly beat Lord Evil, because there's a giant time hole right beneath them. So they're going to try and get the map back and bring in reinforcements from across time to come take care of Lord Evil.
Well, originally it doesn't sound like that though, right? Kevin says, hey, let's us go steal the map. So they try to go steal the map.
Yes.
Because the rest of the Time Bandits are like, deuces, I'm out of here. And Kevin says, well, what good is the world if we let Evil have the map? He's going to wreck everything. And then they kind of get a little bit of guilt, like who invited this guy? And they're like, fine, we'll go try to steal it back. And one bit that I want to talk about that's hilarious is, so Lord Evil creates all these little plebes, but then he just murders them at will, like constantly. and they're cool with it. They're like, yay, death is good and feeling good is bad. Yeah, they're pumped, man. They're like, this is it. They're like, man, if I was in Greece, this would be the equivalent of being a bag put over my head by two guys with gold masks and being thrown in front of Sean Connery for his enjoyment. Like that's how important it is to die. And Benson gets turned into a dog, and it's like the nicest looking sheepdog ever. But what's hilarious is he goes, Benson, be a dog and watch out for the map. Watch the map. The only thing that I need to be super powerful while I go gaze into this pond. So he leaves the map with this dog.
Well, no,
what does the dog do?
He's going to learn technology. That's why.
He's going to go learn more technology. Yeah. So he goes, dog, guard this map. So what does the dog do? Roof, roof, roof. Hey, master, check it out. There's some people trying to steal this map. And what does he go? Benson, shut up. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh, man. So Lord Evil, along with branding, also has to have a little bit better short-term memory. But yeah, I was like, Lord Evil is super evil, or is he just dumb as rocks? Because he was just as bad as the guys he was creating.
Can't he be both?
He can be both, I guess. He could be both. So then from that point on, they take the map, but the one guy has a Polaroid. I'm trying to think who the main Time Bandit is. He has the Polaroid, right, of the different spots, and Kevin has the map.
Yes, Randall,
that's it.
Yeah, well, they're basically over a giant time portal. So
correct.
They're being chased by those weird creatures
who are awesome design. By
yes,
the way.
It's great. It's a great thing to give children nightmares, but
it's like the beetle from the Dark Crystal. The way that they move, with the shoulders move one way while the head moves the other, and the feet go different. It's cool. It's a good vibe. If you like the Beatles from the Dark Crystal, this thing will give you some good nightmares too. It's a really cool effect.
What if you like the Beatles, the band? Same thing?
Same thing, because get this, awesome tie-in, and thank you for the lead-in. George Harrison of the Beatles is one of the producers of this film. At the very end, he does the music, and he's one of the producers of this film. So how crazy is that?
Well, it's not crazy at all. I set that up on purpose.
He put that thought into your head. That's how he set that up.
You woo me with Sean Connery kidnapping boys, and then you bring it on home with the Beatles. I love it.
That leads us into the big showdown versus Lord Evil and the Time Bandits and their reinforcements. And they each bring back some amazing reinforcements. We have a tank, we have knights, we have archers, we have cowboys, and we have a future spaceship with lasers.
I would argue rather than getting all that other stuff, they should just got a bunch of spaceships.
Correct.
Like, your cowboys kind of look pretty obsolete when you whip the spaceship out.
But unfortunately, all of these reinforcements are to no avail because Lord Evil has the perfect counter to all of these, including apparently being in control of all technology.
True. And here's the cool part. The design of his final lair, the big battle, brilliant. There's Lego blocks. It's giant
Yes.
Lego block all over,
He
which I
is
thought
Lord
was hilarious
Business.
because he's Lord Business. I honestly think that the Lego movie stole Lord Business's design from this movie. We should look that up. That's a fact check right there. Is that the case?
I say we just go with
Breaking
it.
news from 1981.
Yes. Leads into it.
So they battle and lose horribly. Each one of them lose horribly, and not just lose, but Lord Evil. The cool part about this is like a kids movie, right? Or elements of a kids movie. So it's like, you hurt me. No, he straight up murders everyone that goes against him. All the people that shoot arrows, he slings them back. Murdered. The cowboys that try to lasso him, he flipping whips them across the room into the rock walls. murdered. The knights that come up, he puts a fog of war in front of them. When the fog clears, they're all stabbed in a giant pile of bodies, murdered. I'm like, whoa, this is gnarly. Like, this is where it's like, this trip is going bad, George. This trip is going bad, George.
And we also lose one of the time bandits here. Unfortunately, one of the lasers goes off, knocks down a pillar, and we lose Fidget. He gets crushed.
True. And another one has turned into a pig at this point, mind you.
Yes. Og was, well, he was turned into a man pig first, and then he was turned into fully a pig.
Sure. Yep.
There was 2 steps of that. We got to make sure. It's really important. There's a reason I said it.
Well,
we gotta highlight this.
It's true, because he goes to a part and it's like, Kevin, give me the map. And he's like, hey, call off all your goons. So what does Lord Evil do? He murders everyone in his entire group. He blows them all up. And this is the only movie I've ever seen this done. They murder the dog. Benson, who's the beautiful little sheepdog, is just sitting there chilling with his tongue out like, and then boom, he blows up. And I went, whoa, they murdered the dog. They got away with it. So back in the 80s, you could do those kind of things, I guess. But
it was before Marley and me. It was allowed.
Yeah. Marley was just a tinkle in his grandpap's eyes. But instead of murdering the one guy, he decides to turn the half pig, half little person into just, let's go full pig instead. I'm going to spare that guy. But go on, I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. Well, how else do you show somebody's the supreme evil if they don't kill a dog? I just don't understand.
I know, right? Like, it was mind-blowing. Like, if John Wick was alive, forget it. Like, at that point, it's done. It's game over. Like, you killed Benson, you know, here we go.
So just when we think all hope is lost and evil is going to win, the Supreme Being shows up, just destroys evil instantly, and then gets the Time Bandits to start cleaning up this mess. Which has another great line where Randall is sitting there, I'm sorry, we stole your map. It's like, stole? I let you have it. I had to test out my creation now and see how it went.
And this is a shot. This is where I think the one bit where they could have done a little bit more. And I don't know if it was time. They were trying to get a cut. Maybe there's some director's cut with it. But he goes, what do you mean? And he goes, evil. Evil turned out really well. And Kevin goes, wait a minute. Are you freaking serious? Like, you just had evil created and you let him murder all these people and wipe out everybody just to test out if evil was evil. And he's like, yeah, all people die to test the free will. And you're like, okay, well, no, so like, is there going to be any other?
It's a throwaway line because Randall is like, well, don't ask that. It's like, then Kevin's like, well, why'd you make evil? It's like, free will or something.
yeah, that was what it was. Yeah, all the people die. He goes, why'd you do it? He goes, free will. And you're going like, oh, so what's the follow-up question going to be? And then it cuts and he goes, make sure you clean that crap up. And you're like, wait, what? Like, it's like this very poetic, like, oh, wow, like without evil, there can be no good. And this is how we're going to test people's free will between, if they choose evil or not. Then I'm actually going to see, some semblance on the humanity that I've created. Like, you could have gone a million different places. And I'm sure in the midst of their fever dream, when they were writing this, they were like, yeah, and it's going to be great because without evil, evil's in the world and then it'll test people. And, I'm sure they had this big, long explanation. And in the end, they just go, I don't know, man, bleep it. Let's just say free will. And that was it. It sounded like that's the go-ahead line. Let's just throw that in there.
Well, luckily, the Supreme Being also brings back Fidget in one of the kind of great managerial lines. It's like, Fidget's dead. That's no excuse to be late for work. He brings him back.
And in true, like, kind of a prickish fashion, he not only gives them all their jobs back, even though he's the one that set them up to do this. He pretty much said, you didn't steal it because I set this whole thing up. Then he says, by the way, I'll give you a job, but I'm going to demote you. And I'm going to backdate your a pay cut of 19% from the beginning of time.
Yes.
So I'm like, man, Supreme Being, why you got to play these guys dirty like that? That's bad. That's bad news.
I mean, I can see backdating from the time they took it, but not all the way through the beginning of time. That seems a little harsh.
Yeah, they're at $0 now. But then again, they lose all their treasure anyway. So what is it? These guys are horrible. They're horrible with money. They need to find a time bandit who knows Quicken books or something.
They need a time financial planner.
Yeah, correct.
Well, they're also really bad at cleanup too, because they're supposed to.
Yeah. Oh,
They're supposed to pick up all this. That's concentrated evil because evil burst apart and it's spread across everywhere, and they got to toss it into a garbage bin. And they can't leave.
So yeah, evil was turned into a rock. So when the Supreme Being shows up, how he beats evil is he turns him into this petrified statue, and the statue falls over. So evil is spread everywhere, and that's what they're cleaning up.
Yes, and they miss one piece.
That's another dick move by the Supreme Being. Why wouldn't you make him something easier to clean up?
Yeah.
They leave. He leaves Kevin behind too. The Time Bandits.
Oh, total dick move. Yeah, total horrible move.
This concentrated evil's spewing out this green smoke, and Kevin wakes up in his bedroom with firefighters pulling him out.
And as the firefighters leave, they trample on, and on the floor is a tank that looks exactly like the tank in the movie, knights that look like the knights from the movie. So all of a sudden you start to say, wait a minute, Kevin was the one doing drugs this whole time, and he's the one that had a fever dream, and now here comes your Wizard of Oz moment, right?
Yes,
Wrong.
He's
Wrong.
Totally wrong.
Yes, he's outside and he pulls his little bag and he's got all the Polaroids that he took from when he was out with the Time Bandits. So it all happened.
Straight up legit, but you're missing the most important part. Who's the firefighter that pulls him out?
Sean Connery. We're not sure if it's King Agamemnon because we did already see that we reused characters throughout time. So it might be they're just...
But he winks at him.
He winks at the guy.
Well, that's after we haven't got there yet.
Oh, yeah.
He is Agamemnon or he needs to be arrested.
Yeah, wait, you got to say why he winks at him and why it's just so bad.
Yeah,
So
we
Rusty,
haven't
get up
gotten
this
there
next
yet.
part. Yeah.
Because the firefighters, he pulls out, I found the culprit. They're just sitting there burning the roast. We didn't even start a roast. And they open it up, and there's the piece of concentrated evil. And Kevin is like, Mom, Dad, don't touch that. It's evil.
This is my favorite part, okay? Because they obviously had no intent of touching it. And then as soon as he has it, he says that, don't touch it. They both just go for it. Like, they no hesitation, no time for thought. As soon as they hear don't touch it, they both just stick their hands in there.
They touch it and instantly explode, and they're gone. And this is where Sean Connery gets into the fire truck, and he turns to Kevin, winks at him, closes the door, and leaves.
Right, so this guy is either Agamemnon or he's a freaking sociopath.
Well, I read something, I think it was on a Reddit, because I looked this up and I'm like, I literally made a phone call the moment I watched this movie because you guys said, hey, check out this movie for the pod and see if you can jump on board. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I watched the movie and I was like, what is going on? Like, did I just see the parents explode, and then the guy who is supposed to be the callback to, like, even if this was a fever dream, maybe he's a neighbor who's a firefighter that he's always imagined that's the kind of dad I want, or some type of whatever misplaced, love. And then it's like, come here, you'll be my son now, and he gets the family. No, the parents blow up, and literally the firefighter's like, look alive there, Jimmy, and like gives him a wink and jumps in the fire truck, and they're out. And there is no like, oh, and this is what happened. No, that's it. That's the end, man.
Yeah,
Like,
we
that's
pull
it.
out.
The fire truck rides off
Pull
into
out
the
just as the
sunset.
movie started. We pull out from the earth and expand. So I'm thinking either...
And then the time map rolls up.
Yeah. Either the Supreme Being wanted to create a British Batman. And he might have been a big fan. The only problem is that there's not a butler to work with, so Kevin's
gonna
going to
have
Sean
a
Connery's
firefighter.
his butler. Sean Connery's the butler in this Batman. He lives at a fireman pool, the Batcave, a fireman pool. The British Batman lives in a firehouse.
I think this might just be that the Monty Python crew really don't know how to end a movie. Because you look back at most of their movies and they're kind of like, how do we end this? Well, this just happens and we're done.
So I looked up. I had one take on it. I wrote down my take, but I looked up. I'm like, what the heck is this ending about? And there were two that I thought were pretty funny. One of them is when it backs up and you see Kevin just left alone. So his whole life is completely wrecked because of an oversight by the Supreme Being. And then it backs up and you see a million houses. Then it backs up and you see Earth. Then it backs up and you see space. Then you see the map roll up. And what it says is like the Supreme Being doesn't care about any of your lives. It was like an anti-religion knock. Like, that happens in the world. And he just rolls up the map and moves on business.
The
and I was
Python
like, okay,
guys,
that's one take.
The Python guys are known for that.
So it could have been that. But the best one, the other one that I heard that was hilarious is because I'm like, well, how does the Sean Connery thing tie in? And they said that King Agamemnon, like, what's his name again? I'll say Sean Connery. So Sean Connery, back in Greece, is so ticked off that Kevin robbed him of all of his thing that he ends up having children, and he tells the story of Kevin stealing all of his stuff, and then he tracks down where Kevin will be at some given point in time. And the lineage of this King Sean Connery carries on from generation to generation as they look to F over Kevin. And all it does is it stems back to the one day where they go into that. And Sean Connery, that's a wink. And that wink just says, I got you back, you son of a bee. Like, I was like, that was a brilliant one. I said that it's like the family line of Sean Connery from back in Greece on there. That's what it was. It was payback, like total payback. And I said, okay, I buy that. I'm good with that. But here's the philosophical one. This is the one where I think the drugs have kicked in, and I sipped from the Kool-Aid. He says that evil turned out really well, and he said whenever he leaves Kevin behind, and he's like, "You're the person to carry on," or something like that, right?
Yep.
So he said, yeah, you're the person to carry on. So he leaves that chunk of evil behind. And when it blows up, Kevin is evil. The sequel is that Kevin is some American psycho running around Britain, not Batman. He's no good guy. He is pure evil. He's created evil. He took away the two parents. He took away the dad that was supposed to be his dad in Sean Connery. And all Sean Connery does is wink and a smile. And all of a sudden the parents explode. All the neighbors that are watching, just leave them go. No one pays attention. So what does he create? He creates not pure evil, but evil blended with humanity. Kevin is the Antichrist. And that's how I think it ends.
I was thinking,
goes forward with it.
I was thinking you were going to go with Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. So we're going with another
Patrick Bateman too. Yeah,
Christopher Bale. So we have another Batman tie-in right there.
Beautiful. That's what it is. Yeah, it could go. It's one Christian Bale or the other. It's either American Psycho or it is Bruce Wayne. One of those two. That's what Kevin becomes.
So we haven't heard somebody else's take on the ending.
I don't know, man. This is the only kids movie I've ever seen that ends with a spontaneous combustion. No, I don't have any theories about it. I think my honest answer for this, not funny ones, I think this is just what Monty Python does. And they end a lot of their stuff this way. And like I've even seen interviews where they talk about how one of the funniest ways to end something is to not end it. And to me that's what this was. So that's my non-funny take on it, and that's what I think this probably was. I think it wasn't necessary that they didn't know how to end it. I think this was on purpose.
True.
Like, how great would it be to have a kids movie end with the parents dying and no reason? Game over, end.
Right. Well, and it's even just like an inversion of the typical kids movie structure of where you open it with a parent dying, and now this is one where you're ending it that way, and it's just it's a non-ending, and I think the way that they just dive in for that thing and how over the top the explosion is, there's no way to me that this was that this was anything other than supposed to be a joke.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But I do prefer your takes on it.
We could throw in a fourth take where he wakes up again and he's like in a very like regal bed and he leans over and Sean Connery goes, "Man, what did we drink last night?" And then that's the end right there. You're like, oh my goodness.
He wakes up and it's all dark and he realizes the bag is on his head.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he woke up as Bob Newhart.
Oh, wow. So what was your take on the end?
It was just an oddball ending, and I think it just falls back to that either they just want to go with the strange, abrupt ending, or they just don't really know how to end stuff. Like looking at Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where all the knights arrested by the cops, and that's where the movie ends, right when they're about to have a big battle.
That has got to be one of the greatest endings to a movie ever. Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Yes.
I love that so much.
That's actually really set up well because the investigators are going through the movie. You see them going back to some of these horrible things that they've done. So it's actually foreshadowed through the movie. You just don't expect it.
See, that's why I disagree with the
that's too
point
funny.
that they don't know how to end things. I think they absolutely know how, and the way they end things is in a way that is a non-ending.
I'd agree with it. I like it when people end in a weird way and you're just like, okay, this warrants a crazy discussion and things can go 100 different ways. This ending is so what the heck is going on? I love it. I mean, right now we've got 4 or 5 different endings and different approaches to it. They did their job, right?
Yes.
They got you talking about it, thinking about it, and having nightmares about it if I would have seen this when I was a kid.
Dude, I never would have opened a toaster oven or a microwave oven again.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank everybody for tuning into this, and I have to put in a little plug here at the end because I am the host of another show. It's actually a podcast called Full of Shit, and you can find it on Spotify. Just type in Full of Shit, the 3 words, and it's basically just a wacky show where we just discuss just about anything. And that typically comes out on Fridays.
And also you can find the link in the description of this video. You can join us again. We'll be releasing one every week. So if you enjoyed this, come back, recommend it to somebody, check out Full of Shit on Spotify, and we'll catch you next time.
One of the things we say on Full of Shit all the time is if you really want to help the show, take one of your friends' phones and then subscribe to this channel forcibly without them knowing. And then maybe one day they will stumble across it and they'll watch it, and you've planted the seeds. You've indoctrinated another fan.
Perfect.